flesh market, hunger and horror. Hunger ruled the medieval world as cruelly as kings or priests. It crept silently across fields and villages, gnawing at bellies, hollowing out faces, leaving bodies too weak to stand. The Great Famine had turned thriving towns into pits of despair, where the soil yielded nothing but weeds and mud. Grain stores lay empty, livestock dead or stolen, and entire families wandered roads with nothing but bones beneath their skin. In this world of decay, the flesh market was born. It began in whispers, rumors of meat being sold in secret alleys, of stew that filled the belly when all else failed. No one asked where it came from at first. Hunger silences questions. Men and women with hollow eyes and ribs pressing through their skin gathered in shadows, trading coins for hunks of gray, stringy flesh. Pots boiled over fires that stank of iron and fat, but no one spoke of what they ate. At the heart of the town stood the market square, once filled with bread and fruit, with fish glistening on wooden stalls. Now it was empty, the cobblestones littered with straw and filth. Only at night did life return, when cloaked figures emerged, leading carts covered in tarps. Beneath those tarps, meat was stacked in slabs, dripping dark fluids, wrapped in rags. The vendors' faces were hidden behind hoods, their voices hushed, their eyes cold and watchful. People came in silence, coins trembling in their hands. Mothers bought morsels to feed starving children. Old men chewed slowly, weeping as they swallowed. No one admitted the truth. The meat was human. Criminals executed at the gallows, beggars found dead in gutters, plague victims carried from houses. None were given burials. They vanished into the flesh market, carved and divided like livestock. The air of the market was heavy with rot. Torches smoked against damp walls, their light casting long shadows that seemed to twitch with hunger. Dogs prowled, their eyes glowing in the dark, snapping at scraps that fell into the mud. Rats scurried beneath stalls, gnawing on bones with scraps of flesh still clinging. The smell of burning fat clung to everything, crawling into hair and clothes, impossible to escape. Sometimes buyers found things in their purchases. A human tooth embedded in gristle, a fingernail lodged in fat, a ring still clinging to a severed finger. These were thrown into the fire without a word, eyes cast downward, shame and desperation binding every soul to silence. The flesh market grew bolder as famine deepened. It was no longer only the dead who filled the stalls. Travelers who strayed too close to town were never seen again. Children disappeared from alleys, their mothers screaming in vain. Some whispered that gangs roamed the streets at night, clubs in hand, dragging the weak into cellars where knives waited. Their bodies would be sold the next day, hacked into nameless cuts, their blood washing into drains that already ran thick with filth. But the market did not just feed hunger, it fed greed. The vendors grew fat even as the town wasted away. Their knives were sharp, their scales always ready. Coins changed hands quickly, never kept long, always spent on more tarps, more carts, more blades. At times, priests spoke out, denouncing the market as sin, but their words carried no weight against gnawing bellies. Some priests were even seen buying meat in secret, their collars hidden, their faces twisted in shame. As famine lingered, horror deepened. Families sold their dead, dragging stiff bodies by the arms to the market, bargaining for a better price. A father once sold his daughter's corpse, eyes empty, lips cracked with thirst. He left clutching coins, but he did not live long enough to spend them. His neighbors found him days later, half-eaten by dogs, his bones scattered in the mud. Still the market thrived. Fires burned every night, casting a red glow into the sky, the smell of charred flesh drifting across town like incense of despair. Those who ate often fell sick, their bellies twisting, vomit staining their rags. Some swore they dreamed of the dead whispering in their ears, accusing them, haunting them, demanding their flesh be returned. But come morning, they returned to the stalls, coins ready in their hands, unable to resist the promise of food. The market became a place of nightmares. In its corners, bones were stacked in heaps, stripped of flesh, gnawed by rats. Knives clattered on wooden blocks, cleaving through sinew and bone with practiced rhythm. Buckets filled with blood were poured into gutters, the cobblestones slick and black beneath bare feet. Children, too weak to cry, were spoon-fed thin stew made of their own neighbors. The smell was inescapable. It clung to the air, heavy and sweet, the stench of cooked fat and rot blending until no one could tell where one ended and the other began. Some swore the very stones of the square had soaked in blood, that no rain could wash it clean. Dogs licked at the cracks, their teeth red, their eyes rabid. One night, a cart overturned, spilling its contents across the cobblestones. A woman's arm, pale and stiff, rolled into the dirt, the hand still wearing a wedding band. The crowd gasped, but no one fled. Instead, they swarmed, scrambling like animals, tearing the flesh apart with hands and teeth, devouring it raw as blood smeared across their faces. The vendors watched without a word, eyes gleaming in torchlight. Over time, the flesh market became legend. Travelers whispered of it, calling the town cursed. Some said demons walked among the stalls, guiding the hands of the vendors, feeding on despair. Others swore the famine was punishment from God, and the market his proof that humanity had turned beast. Yet the truth was simpler and darker. Hunger strips away all but the will to survive. Laws, faith, morality, all rotted under the weight of famine. What remained was flesh, and the market knew no end. Even when the famine eased, the market did not die. It lingered in shadows, moving from square to cellar, from cellar to hidden barn. The trade in human meat never truly stopped. Murder replaced famine as supply, greed replacing desperation. Some men found they preferred the taste. Others found they preferred the profit. And so, long after the famine was forgotten, long after fields turned green again and bread filled ovens, the flesh market endured. In whispers, in shadows, in alleys that stank of blood, it remained, proof that hunger had not just devoured bodies, it had devoured souls. The cobblestones remembered, the walls remembered, the rats that prowled the drains remembered. And every time the wind shifted through the empty square, it carried the faint, sickly sweet stench of roasting flesh. The flesh market had never closed.